Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sadam Borkowski, and I work as aviation security and intelligence expert at EASA. It is a great pleasure for me to be here with you today and moderate this panel together with my colleague, Rowan.
Hi, I'm Rowan Powell. I'm EASA's Senior Safety Intelligence Coordinator and also Chair of the Human Factors Collaborative Analysis Group.
The objective of this panel is to discuss the integrated risk management concept. Traditionally, safety and security were considered totally separately. And the reason for that is that in aviation safety, we are mostly dealing with unintentional events from within the system, while in aviation security, we are facing intentional acts of unlawful interference designed to intentionally target civil aviation in order to cause maximum harm and disruption. So the main question for this panel that we would like to discuss with our panelists is whether it is at all possible to have a common approach to the management of different risks, including safety and security. If yes, what do we need to make it happen? And if no, what are the challenges or what are the obstacles to make it that makes it difficult or sometimes even impossible? Before starting with our discussion, I would like to invite you to watch two short videos that will be used to set the scene for our discussion. One will be directly from the ICAO headquarters in Montreal, and the second one will give us a chance to see that this topic is also discussed in the framework of a different sector, and this will be an energy sector represented by ITER.
Hi, I'm Steve Creamer, Director of the Air Navigation Bureau at ICAO. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about the importance of an integrated approach to the management of safety and security risks. It's timely. ICAO has dubbed 2021 the Year of Security Culture. Traditionally, the safety and security domains have developed independent risk management strategies and methodologies to respond to their respective risks. This has provided significant benefit. However, risk management conducted in silos can introduce additional hazards through well-intentioned mitigations viewed from only a single perspective. Recent situations, such as COVID-19, conflict zones, the carriage of personal electronic devices, the implementation of reinforced cockpit doors, have shown us achieving a more integrated risk management approach across domains is crucial to support effective and efficient decision-making processes by states. Integrated risk management, or IRM, brings together stakeholders from different domains with a range of perspectives, sharing their strategies and methodologies and tools to support proactive collaboration and comparative risk assessment. But these risk assessments require rich data sourcing. So ICAO also supports collaboration between states, RSOOs, RAIOs, international organizations, in order to develop solutions that keep confidential data secure while helping ensure relevant safety and security risk management information is more widely shared. ICAO wants to play an active role in facilitating the progress of this work at the global level. The Risk Assessment Manual for Civil Aircraft Operations over and near conflict zones, and the Handbook for Civil Aviation Authorities on the management of aviation safety risks related to COVID-19 are recent examples of guidance that ICAO has developed to address specific issues that involve more than one domain. In addition, we've been exploring the development of a unified framework which would provide the aviation community with a common structure and language to facilitate the conduct of risk assessments in parallel with a way to compare the risk and support the development of complementary risk mitigation strategies across all domains. This would allow us to apply a consistent approach to a much broader range of issues. As our world continues to evolve and become increasingly interconnected, new risks, which we don't have previous experience with, will continue to emerge. We need to be proactive, and we need to all work together to make the paradigm shift to integrated risk management. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Christophe Ramu. I am Security, Health and Safety Division Head for the ITER organization. ITER means the way in Latin, but is also one of the most ambitious energy projects in the world today. In the southern part of France, 35 nations are collaborating to build the world's largest tokamak, which is a magnetic fusion device that has been designed to prove the feasibility of a fusion at a large scale and carbon-free source of energy based on the same principle that powers sun and stars. I am today head of safety and security for this project, and we are currently building the machine. It has been starting since 2007, and we hope to have the first plasma delivered in 2025. It was when I joined the organization 10 years ago, I had the idea to merge the position of occupational health and safety, security, and emergency management. And this is the role that I am playing today at ITER. It has a huge advantages by owning by one person only this position, because it means that we have the design today of the machine and soon the operation, and some of the decision that we can take in occupational safety or emergency management can be at the opposite of the security decision that we will take. So by owning this responsibility today, I think that I can manage to have the best efficient solution, both in terms of occupational safety and security.
I would like to thank Steven and Christophe for this introduction and for their insights. Now let me please introduce our panelists. I'm pleased to have with us today Piotr Samson, who is Director General for Civil Aviation in Poland and also the Chairman of the EASA Management Board. Piotr, welcome. I'm also glad to have with us today Captain John Monks, who is Director for Safety and Security at British Airways. Welcome, John. I'm also pleased to welcome Tarald Johansen, who is Director for Safety, Security, Health, Contingency and Quality at Avinor Group. Welcome, Tarald. And I'm also very happy to welcome Francesco Di Maio, who is the Head of Corporate Security at ENAV, which is Italian ANSP. Thank you very much for being with us today and for making yourself available to contribute to our discussions. So let me please be a devil's advocate and ask you maybe a provocative question. Does the integrated risk management concept make a sense to you? If yes, can you please give some examples from your organizations to convince me? And if not, why it doesn't make sense? Piotr, can I please ask you to take this question as the first panelist?
Good afternoon, Adam. Good afternoon, colleagues. Of course, it does. It makes sense. And I will start with some kind of the anecdote. You know, the passenger on the flight just wants to get safety from point A to point B, regardless whether any potential risks are based on safety or security. We want, at the end of the day, that every flight should be safe. In Polish language, if you translate the word safety and security, sometimes it's the same word in Polish, which also shows you a kind of evidence that these two elements are very related to each other. The other element is, I think, that if you take the crew of the plane, the captain, he very well knows, and he has to be always aware both of safety and security. So I think these two issues, two items should be analyzed together. As an examples, which I can put forward, is the case we had, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, the case of the portable electronic devices and the dispute we had. As far as I remember, that was the dispute between Europe and US. What is the best place in the plane to place the portable electronic devices, whether this is in a load or this is on board? And you had 2 different ways of thinking. One was security-driven, one was safety-driven. From our Polish perspective, and as the head of the CAA, I can just confirm that both our security department and the safety department are working very closely, and they are in constant contact and talk one to the other. So I think the final point is talk to each other. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Piotr. And so then, John, working as Safety and Security Director for one of the world's largest airlines, it gives you a unique perspective, I think, on this topic. What's your opinion on integrated risk management?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invite here. Well, I think I'm definitely fully supportive of the statements made previously by Christoph, Stephen, and indeed Piotr about the value of an integrated risk management system. Certainly, we support and we thoroughly engage with a single risk management system that holistically views the risks across the multiple domains, actually. And I think Christoph mentioned occupational safety as well. So here at British Airways, we're developing and implementing a management system that incorporates the aviation safety, the occupational safety, the aviation security, other spheres of security, and indeed cybersecurity into a single management system that allows us to assess the risks of those different domains and present it holistically to those that need to know, the NPs and indeed the board, to allow us to assess those and fundamentally deploy the resources we have to mitigate those more effectively. I think I support also what Stephen said, which was actually understanding those tools that we use to mitigate the risk across both safety and security will allow us to create value in those dependent actions contributing to an overall reduction in risk. So we're fully supportive of the single risk management approach, stretching across as many domains as it's relevant to each organization. I think the more and more the dependencies across industry and indeed our own organizations drive a need and a requirement to have a single risk management approach, whether that's the assessment of risk, the output of those tools that we use to understand the risk picture in both of those domains. And I guess probably the best example of us in recent years, Piotr mentioned the PED issue. I think it came to a great fore actually regarding access to the flight deck. So we've had a number of occasions all the way since 9/11 where we've had to review and understand the rationale behind the restriction of access to the flight deck, and thus allowing us to bring together those two perspectives really allows us to make the best decision from an overall risk perspective, not just focusing on one particular element.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. Tarald, we've heard from John that integrating different risks into one risk assessment can and is contributing to the safety of flight. I do not want to say that airports do not share this high-level principle, but usually the airport's daily business is more divided into safety and security. So what does it look like from your perspective? Can we have also an integrated approach to the risk management also at the airport level? I think you are muted. You need to unmute yourself. We still cannot hear you. Seems that we are having some technical issues.
Shall we go to Francesco and then come back to Tarot?
Yeah.
Francesco, what does integrated risk management mean to an air navigation service provider? Do you have the same considerations as air operators and as aerodromes, or are there some key differences for you?
Thank you, Rowan. Good afternoon, everybody. Air navigation service started a long time ago to establish a fully integrated management system. So the Adams question sounds less provocative for us. This approach comes from the European regulatory framework, which stimulated investigations on risk as a whole and the need for a holistic proposition to management. Still, it's not only a matter of binding obligation. Integrating the different management systems, those existing yet, such as security, safety, and quality, and those adopted for practical reasons, environment, business continuity, fair procurement, to mention the newest, is a strong statement. The organization is one and shall act as a single body, organized, driving to all the effort in a harmonized, holistic approach. You can quickly figure out the benefits from this perspective in terms of organization, strategy, alignment of plans with business, and perfectly adapted to the institutional mission of ANSP, which, using the word of a primary single European scale regulation, is connected with the exercise of powers of a public authority, which are not of an economic nature, but related to the safeguarding of the human life on board and the ground, and the efficiency and regularity of transport by air. And let me say, this also implies relevant impacts on cost reduction and overall efficiency in terms of economics, starting from the investment and bounding to the supply chain management, passing through the enhancement of the human factor. For INAV, a stock market quoted company, it implies also an additional benefit for the investors who can rely on enhanced risk-based management fully committed to excellence and continuous improvement. In my opinion, the same consideration could also fit for any aeronautical entities, including airline and aerodromes. Of course, one size doesn't fit all, and the integration is just a matter of tailoring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Tarald?
Yes, can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear you this time. So please give us your perspective to this topic.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. I think airports have worked with safety issues for many decades, since the establishment of ICAO, I think. And we are quite familiar with continuous improvement on the safety area. And safety is often described as the top priority for airport operators. And of course, it is our top priority. Security, however, is a relatively new task for airports. I think, as John mentioned, the 9/11 attacks in 2001 and many following events was a game changer for airport security. And the security requirements have grown in numbers and details over the years, and they often interfere with airside operations. So this has become a new top priority for us. But in fact, as you all know, we have many top priorities. And in the Avinor Group, we own and operate 44 airports throughout Norway. And we had to find a way to address all requirements in a better way, to coordinate our work to become compliant, but also to find a cost-efficient approach. So we quickly found out it was necessary for us to develop and build an integrated quality management system that addressed all disciplines: safety, security, health, environment, etc. Because there are many similarities between all the different subjects, but there are also many differences. The nature of security, for instance, is secrecy in many ways, and it demands perhaps a sophisticated IT system though many requirements are secret, and then the level of protection of the airport is confidential, etc. So in the Avinor Group, we now apply the same systems, tools, procedures, assessments, methodology, etc., in a similar approach on all different subjects. So the occurrence reporting system and the procedures are the basis for this, and it is used for all subjects. And we use access control between the different modules to keep up with the security requirements. So only a handful of our employees will have access to the security module, for instance. So for this, this is for us a very effective approach, and we are quite happy that we took these decisions several years ago. People become familiar with the use of one system instead of several different tools. And people can perform risk assessment on security the one day and on safety the other day. They can switch between work areas, and we get a good motivated staff which has a good insight on different subjects, and it tears down barriers between the different topics. So for us, this has become a very valuable for the development of a good and fruitful organizational culture. But having said all this, this has worked out fine within our organization, but it might not be the ideal solution for other organizations. So perhaps it should be up to the airports to organize themselves according to what works best in their respective national, legal, and historical environments.
Thank you very much, Tarald, and thank you also to all panelists for providing their insights. I'm happy to know that there is an overall consensus that the integrated risk management can bring an added value and can make even aviation even more safe and secure. But this also brings another question on my side. Why is it so difficult to implement this in practice? What do we need to be done at European, national, or maybe even entity level to make this happen, to integrate different risks into one umbrella and to have the same concept applied everywhere? Tarald, using the chance that you are now unmuted, can you please take this question?
Yes. When we started to look into this, we didn't have any guidance material on how to develop and implement an integrated system. And to have a guidance material would have been very convenient. A description of possibilities and ways to develop and how to implement best practices, etc., would have been very valuable. And I think this way of working is, it's fair to say that it is our experience that an integrated risk management system will also introduce new ways to work together. And you might get some resistance within your organization. So I think for Avinor, it was crucial that top management was on board. Unless you will have second opinions and rematches and challenges all along.
Thank you. And Piotr, you're not only Director General of Civil Aviation in Poland, but also Chair of the EASA Management Board. That puts you in a unique position to give us all some advice and recommendations on the subject.
Piotr, please, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Okay, first let me say that the fact that this topic is discussed today during the safety conference, EASA safety conference, I think it's a great evidence that EASA is fully aware of the relation between the safety and security and how important it is. Then my other observation is that the lower we get into this whole logistics process on the aviation, so as I said at the very beginning, if we get to the level of the airport handling or the of the flight operations, I think there's a full understanding. I think the challenge is at the and what Tarald said, the challenge is to convince the top decision makers that these two elements are linked with each other. Maybe part of the issue is that historically it was first the safety in aviation as an element, as a topic, and then security came later. I think another element is that when we talk about the security, I think there is a heavy involvement of the national security agencies. So people not just dealing directly, purely with the aviation, but dealing with the security in general. And that's why maybe this is a kind of a certain constraint to convince them and talking to them in the aviation language. So the security experts are aware of these interdependencies between the safety and security. To give you the Polish example, so far we had a body which was called the Security and Facilitation Panel on the government level. Now we are going to change it into the Safety, Security and Facilitation Body. And this is an example that we want to convince the top decision makers, politicians sometimes, that it should be considered together. And as I said in my previous intervention, I think my advice will be talk to each other, involve each other, and convince each other with your arguments. Thank you.
Excellent. Many thanks, Piotr. John, what are your solutions and advices that you could give to other air carriers or maybe also to other stakeholders to implement the integrated risk management in practice?
Adam, I think it's important to say, as Piotr mentioned, that actually we all have a role in the integration, in the assessment of the risks, whether that's at EU level or indeed ICAO level, and they've taken a lead, EU level, state level, or indeed organizational level. It's definitely challenging to get to a single position. There are many differing needs across the domains when it comes to the assessment of risk, whether that's safety or security. So different perspectives need a different approach. But I would absolutely support the position that that leadership at whatever level, organizational, state level, or indeed EU level, needs to drive this forward, to understand the value of it, having a common objective, whilst recognizing the differences of each of the domains will indeed make it more successful. Simple things, really. Language. The use of language, whether it's in the regulation, whether it's in an organizational's policies or procedures, is really helpful. Helpful to everybody to align themselves to a common vision and a common objective. Indeed, little elements. So we're required to have a safety policy and a security policy across different domains in the management system. Having a single common safety and security policy that meets all of the regulatory needs is a simple but straightforward way of recognizing the organizations and the individual's commitment to both safety and security. So I think it's fair to say that we all have a common objective, and this must be demonstrated throughout the parties that are involved in developing the regulation, implementing the regulation, and delivering to manage the safety and security risk on a daily basis. But it is a challenge. It's not easy, but key to it is leadership, engagement, and sharing the vision.
Many thanks, John. And then finally, Francesco, what would be your recommendations to support implementation of the IRM concept?
Thank you again. Organizations are not machines. They act using the heads and the voice of the employees and the manager. The critical success factor of any initiatives in terms of integration requires significant work on a few qualifying key success factors. First, the commitment from the top management, essential for clarifying the objectives, the expectations, and the provision of resources needed. Second, the full involvement of the whole organization, from managers to simple employees. The message is integration is the key to success, in which the final target is to engage any sector of the entity in a story of success. The wrong is, in integration, everyone loses a part of power. In other words, integration is a great cultural revolution in which trust, knowledge sharing, and teamwork attitude is the only way to achieve a common goal, which is in the public interest and in the interest of the entity involved. How do that from the public side? A clear, simple regulatory framework, a supportive dialogue between rule makers and appropriate authorities, a sustainable perspective in a strategic view for the whole aviation industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Before we open the floor for the questions from the public, I would like to invite you to use Slido to provide your questions. And I would like to also invite Rowan to give us a quick insight on the development of the IRM concept at EASA. Rowan.
Thank you, Adam. So we'll wait for the presentation to come up. Here we are. So I think as we've learned from the pandemic, and I think something that we knew before that even, some of the biggest risks are predictable when we look at aviation. And they can fall into the gaps between institutions. Or perhaps a better way of looking at it is that they are risks that are shared between the institutions, so that the individual actors in each organisation don't see the full picture, they don't understand the scope and therefore perhaps the scale of the risk that they are looking at. And that makes it very difficult then to react and to prioritise, in particular if they are seeing the full scope of other risks. I think aviation itself, and when we look at EASA's remit as per the basic regulation, our goal is to deliver safe, secure, efficient, effective aviation. And we look at that in terms of safety, environment and cybersecurity already, so that we are protecting European citizens no matter the source of the threat, and indeed anyone travelling in Europe or on EASA products. So when we're moving towards integrated risk management, I think the need to understand the interdependencies between the different risks is not new. It's something we've done under the Single European Sky framework in the performance and charging scheme, for example, where we look at safety, environment, capacity and cost efficiency. But if we are just looking at IRM through the prism of interdependencies, we're still treating these risks as separate rather than integrated, and then trying to somehow reconcile or understand their interactions later. I think that's not genuinely integrated. Genuine IRM, I think, requires a framework for identifying risks, analysing them and managing them. And it's clear that some of the ways that we do things in safety versus security are different, and we may not be able to share information in the same ways that we do in safety and security. But when we look at how we regulate safety management in Europe, we talk about management systems, not safety management systems. And so as we move forward and look at EASA and the European safety risk management process, what I would like to see is it becoming a risk management process where we integrate the different sources of risks and we understand them on equal terms.
Thank you very much, Rowan. Now I would like to open the floor for the questions from the public. And I see that we have already some questions. So the first question is, in most countries, states, security is under the Ministry of the Interior, whereas aviation safety is under the remit of the State Aviation Authority. Does this present a problem for a harmonized approach as in the PIED issue? Piotr, can I please ask you to take this question on board?
Yes. I mean, as it was said in the question, in most states, I mean, in not all of them, but if you take the case presented that you have these differences in terms of the authorities between the, let's say, the Home Office, so the Internal Affairs and the Transport, of course, every differentiation creates a complexity. So it's not easy. But again, the solution is to use the arguments and use the data. And based on my experiences, a suggestion is if you have some issues to convince the security colleagues from the Ministry of Internal Affairs, invite them to the airport, show them the airport from behind the scenes, you know, how these elements complement each other. Take them on board the plane and fly with them together, because I think the real life and the real arguments, this is the best way to convince the colleagues also from other ministers. Thank you.
Thank you, Piotr. And I can see another question here from Mohammed Ihab Hamdi. He asks, theoretically, the integration seems to be very interesting, yet the big question would be, to what extent is this integration, can this integration be practically implemented? And what are the key elements facilitating such implementation? So I don't know, perhaps whether, John, you would like to take that question.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. It is an interesting one, and it's a real challenge for us. I think, just building on the last point, the key for an organization is to design a management system that effectively allows us to bring together those different needs and overcome the differences in the location of the government agency that owns security versus safety. And effectively, the organization's management system is the mechanism that brings those different languages together and creates a single language for the organization and for the resource to manage. So how do you do that? Well, actually having a single risk matrix that takes into account the different domains is one of the ways that you can bring together a single picture and a single currency of risk across those different domains.
Thank you very much, John. The next question is from Johan. Why do airports use expensive security screening detection technologies to look for explosives, but not for dangerous goods? In recent years, no explosives have been found, but we had hundreds of examples of dangerous goods on board. I think this question refers to both to airport and to the air carriers, but I will give the floor first to Tarald, and then I would like also John to get back to this. Tarald, what is your perspective?
Yeah, this is really a difficult one, I think. I think when we look at the ICAO documents on dangerous goods, etc., it's a topic for the airline companies and their handling agents. And I think if we would like to change this framework, I think this is mainly a task for the regulators. And although screening technologies also can detect some, not all, dangerous goods, their algorithms are in many cases developed to detect prohibited items, which is quite different. So I don't think there's necessarily an easy approach for this, but of course it can be done. But I think the regulators have to go first.
Okay, thank you very much, Tarald. John, what is your perspective to this question?
Yeah, I think that's one of those great examples of where security technology, when you're looking at the controls against security and safety, could be utilized the same way at the same time for both different domains. Notwithstanding that there are some challenges, but technology is probably here to support us in this. So using those algorithms to develop and fundamentally be able to detect those dangerous goods where their presence may be in cargo is one of those, I guess, examples of where we should be collaborating over the two domains, but inherently, historically, we've had the friction between the two because safety had a priority and security had a priority, and actually the two didn't add up. I think it's our job, yes, to drive the regulation to support the ability to do that, but to a certain degree, we shouldn't wait for regulation because our job, whether that is as cargo shippers, whether it's as air carriers or indeed airport operators, our job collectively is to reduce the overall risk to the travelling public.
Thank you, John. And I see here we have a question from Di Whittingham. Do we need to have a common language as well as a common framework? And so perhaps a different term or the same term for those issues that have both security and safety implications. And I think perhaps Francesco, if you could give us your thoughts on that.
Yes, of course. The first point recalls my statement before. trust and mutual knowledge. This brings all the organization to try to understand each part of the organization itself. And this also drives to build a common language, a common understanding, and especially common objectives, which is the fundamental purpose of an integration of systems. From the risk, from the threats, hazards, or the way we would call them, the understanding of an incident, of an accident, and the way to prevent them. This way, we can build trust, build mutual understanding, and the way the system can provide benefit to the organization.
Thank you very much, Francesco. The next question is from Marco, and he's asking, one of the key concepts of safety reporting is the just culture. Would you consider possible having the same culture in security? Maybe Tarald, could you please give your thoughts on this?
Yes, I can speak for the Avinor Group. We try to use the just culture principles on all different subjects. So yes, indeed, I think this is a very good idea for the security subjects as well. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tarald, and thank you also to all panelists for providing their insights. Before we conclude our panel, let me ask you the final question. What would be your key takeaway message that you would like to give to all of us and to the public that is watching our panel today? So maybe we can start with Piotr.
I believe that the final message should be that we need a really holistic approach to the issue based on data and based on facts. And if you have problems with convincing the colleagues from the security departments, make them be involved in the processes and make them be part of the processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Piotr. John, what is your key takeaway message?
I think leadership, Adam. I think in an organization, you have to set the reason why it's the best approach to have an integrated risk management. And you have to understand the reason why for the rest of the organization to do so. Focus. Focus on the things that bring the domains together. Don't focus on the differences between safety and security risk, because there's probably more that draws you together than separates you. And finally, for me, don't let regulation or the lack of specificity in the regulation stop you from doing this.
Thank you very much, John. Tarald, can you please share with us your takeaway message?
Yes, I think it's very important to find ways to integrate work areas in a more process-oriented way to become efficient. And to let the employees switch between work areas is also very motivating. And they will give them insight on several subjects, which will tear down the barriers or silos between the different topics. So I think this can be good for organizational culture as well.
Thank you very much, Tarald. And Francesco?
The real threat against the integration is the lack of the culture. Suppose the objective is let's break the silos. In that case, we can only start a revolution from a human-centric action, which could tear down walls and fences and build bridges between different domains within our organization.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I've learned a lot today, and if I can also share with all of you my personal takeaway message, I think we can all agree that there is a need to have a holistic approach to safety and security. What matters at the end is the safety of flight. We need also data for any risk assessment. That's why data-driven approach should apply to both to safety and to security. And security occurrence reporting is a key element that will allow this to happen. Safety mechanisms and tools can be easily used and adapted for the benefit of security. And I think all our panelists, they refer to safety concept and the usefulness of those concepts for the benefit of security, but also for the benefit of the whole aviation at the end. Finally, it was also emphasized that we need to work closely at the European level with our partners, but also at the global level to implement this concept in practice. At the end, for the traveling public, it doesn't really matter how we categorize the risk, whether it is safety, security, cyber security, conflict zones, or whatever. They want to arrive safely. And we owe them our effort to make this happen. Thank you very much for your attention. I will give now the floor to Eric to conclude today's session.
Thank you very much, Adam. Rowan. So it's time now to close the first day of SAFE 360. This first day was actually just one afternoon, but it was quite intense. At least it has been for us over here. So we had keynote speeches from Patrick Key, our Executive Director, and from Luc Titkat, our Strategy and Safety Management Director. So what they did, they both put in perspective the necessity to have a safe return to operations while facing more challenges, like, for instance, the necessity to be even greener as an industry, and also handling the security and cybersecurity threats when they impact safety. The collaborative nature of our common efforts to take up these challenges was reminded several times today. In the new safety landscape panel, we had seniors and executive managers from industry and authorities who discussed how much systemic changes have occurred to us and how we can get ready for the expected ramp-up to operations, something we are already witnessing. Then the Data for Safety panel shed some light on the current developments of this program and on all the expectations that we have on this program to actually support us to have a better system to identify the safety risks and mitigations at European level. Finally, we just had some very insightful discussions on a new frontier, which is this integration of safety and security. And the discussions for me were very interesting because at EASA we are trying to integrate that. And that's why, by the way, both the security experts and the safety experts are in the same department, because we want to manage that in an integrated manner. So tomorrow we will open the day 2 at 1:50 p.m. So the discussions will be a bit more technical tomorrow. We'll dip a bit more into the safety analysis, and we are going to review 3 safety issues that are on the top 10 of our list of safety issues. The training effectiveness and competence, and I think the training aspect was discussed a lot, in particular by the operators or pilots today, as a necessity in these times of lack of recency. The approach past management, and you heard also some airlines saying it was their top issue. And finally, the turnaround safety. So I hope that gives you appetite for more discussions tomorrow. So on this, I would like to wish you all a good evening, and I hope to see you tomorrow at 1:50 p.m. Thank you very much.